Linebacker is a position of need here in Washington, and Patrick Queen is our player focus today. Let's go. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Ref the District's Player Focus. Today we'll be talking about Patrick Queen. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner here on the Believe Network, and we've been providing these player focuses on various people, free agent targets. We're going to have draft targets coming up, so you're going to want to make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, so that way you can get all of your favorite Washington Commander news and speculation right here on the channel. And if you're listening to this on your favorite audio platform, make sure you leave us a rating and review, as that helps people find our channel and the conversation grows and we get even more experience and more fun, especially when we stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern, where you can join the conversation right here with us. Let's move on here, Stoner, because the free agent period is almost upon us. In fact, we're going to have to start shifting focus very quickly because teams are going to start signing people. The open period for tampering starts the 11th, which means teams are already tampering. It's happening right now. Why is this an exciting time for Washington fans?
$87 million. That's the cap space Washington has. That's number one in the entire NFL. Now, look, that's a lot of cap space, a lot of maneuvering that they need to do. The thing we got to caution about in this offseason, the most important offseason probably in the last 20 to 25 years, is that they've only got basically 51 guys under contract out of 90. This is a 90-man roster when you go into training camp. So they've got to basically sign almost 40 guys in that $87 million. So even though that sounds like a lot of money, they still have to figure out where the money goes in the best possible way. They've got holes everywhere. They've got holes at some of the most important positions on the field: edge rusher, linebacker, possibly safety, possibly tight end, all of these things. So they need to make very judicious decisions here with this cap. And so this is going to be huge in determining which guys they're going to end up signing here in the offseason.
Yeah, there is a lot of options out there when it comes to signing, not just their own players who we will want to talk about, but also some of these players that we have talked about. And if you want to sit there and you love your prop bets, you're going to head over to Bet Online, because they have all of that information for you as far as which team is likely to land which player. They have also got March Madness news. They've got NBA action. They've got baseball's coming up action. NHL. Can Ovi stay on a hot streak? All that is right there on Bet Online. Use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get yourself a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Let them know that we sent you there, so that way you have all of that right at your fingertips. Bet Online, where the game starts. And let's go ahead and start here with our player focus today, and that is Patrick Queen. Linebacker is a position of need, Stoner, here in Washington. It's been long neglected under two former linebackers themselves, in Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. It doesn't make any sense, right? They draft a linebacker in the first round. They wanted Jamin Davis to be a middle linebacker. It turns out he wasn't. He's starting to come on a little bit here for Washington outside of that middle linebacker role. They bring in Cody Barton on a one-year deal. That doesn't work out. You see Khaleke Hudson kind of come back and maybe show promise that he can continue with the team. And spoiler alert, I would still like to see Khaleke Hudson in the burgundy and gold, because I think he would make a good linebacker addition to this team. Now, someone who I think would make a better linebacker addition to this team is Patrick Queen. Okay, yeah. This is an exciting young player. He did have his fifth-year option declined by the Baltimore Ravens, but he has been doing everything right, I feel like, over the last two seasons. It was a real shock that the Ravens, prior to the 2023 season, declined to, pick up his option, because his 2022 season was fantastic, and you can see the growth for him coming in as a player and learning his position and being more explosive and being this speed demon that he was known for coming into the league. And then 2023, he continued having a good season. And I just feel like this would be a nice addition for the Dan Quinn era to start and kind of let everybody know, hey, we're back, right? We're still here, and the defense is going to be what we thought it could have been over the last few seasons.
I think when we look at the linebacker position in general, we've all talked about it over the last few years, how it has been devalued. Now, look, you still need excellent linebackers. The point is that you don't need linebackers. That's not the devaluation. The devaluation is how much you're going to pay these guys. It's the same way as running backs. Do you need a good running back? Of course you do, but you're not going to give them $25 million a year.
Sure.
The same goes kind of with Patrick Queen in the linebacker position. You're not going to give him big money, but it's still a very important position to have, especially when you saw on Washington as the guys you mentioned, like Cody Barton and David Mayo, guys like that who just couldn't get the job done over the last couple of years. And hopefully Jamin Davis picks up. But I like the idea of Patrick Queen, Nathan, and you're selling me a little bit on him. I do worry about his expense. I do worry about, because he's coming off his best season, because he made his first Pro Bowl. Is this a guy who's going to cost Washington a ton of money in free agency?
Well, what he's being projected out right now, and this is all projection. This is all, we don't know what the market's going to be set, because that first player contract could just change everything. Everybody remembers when Christian Kirk signed a contract over with the Jacksonville Jaguars for wide receivers. Every wide receiver behind him said thank you, because they were of higher quality, or perceived higher quality than Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was like a third guy in Arizona. Now all of a sudden he was going to be the number one in Jacksonville, and he signs a huge contract. Now all the number one wide receivers are licking their chops, right? Because it meant that they're going to get a big deal. So we don't know what the linebacker market's going to look like. That being said, his projection is going to be around $18 million a year. Washington has a lot of money to spend, and there might even have more money depending on how contracts are restructured or who else is let go, even a post-1 designation. And when you're talking about $18 million a year, it doesn't all have to be right here, right now. You can structure it in a way where maybe some of those hits come later in his contract, where that means you can still buy somebody expensive this year and kind of move it around. These cap specialists that the teams have are fantastic. And Washington with 80 million right now in space is going to be dangerous, a lot more dangerous than, say, the New Orleans Saints, who are 80 million under, or 80 million over the cap, rather.
Yeah.
So they've got to figure out a way to get under the cap. And Washington has essentially twice as much money. I trust the cap specialists to work this as they try to put together a team that Washington fans and Dan Quinn can be happy with.
Well, here's a question then, Nathan. If Patrick Queen is now a free agent and Baltimore brought in Roquan Smith in a trade last year, really helped out Baltimore as a whole. Their defense was number one basically most of the year. Why is it then that Patrick Queen last year, coming off his best year last year, why do you think that Baltimore said, you know what, we're not going to franchise tag you and we're going to let you basically test free agency? Why would the Ravens do that?
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre that happened. And just to kind of clarify for some listeners, if they haven't already commented, Roquan Smith was not last season. It was the season before. And so that, I think, actually is one of the reasons why Patrick Queen started kind of coming on, is because he had another great linebacker to play next to. And Roquan Smith's addition and then subsequent extension is actually one of the reasons why the Baltimore Ravens did not exercise that fifth-year option. Because they already had Roquan Smith, and it's not that Patrick Queen isn't worth keeping around, but they already had money invested in probably, of the two, the better linebacker. But Roquan Smith's not available this free agent, and Patrick Queen is. And I wouldn't be concerned about why Baltimore is letting him leave as much as I would actually be concerned about whether or not Patrick Queen wants to follow Mike McDonald to the Seattle Seahawks, and how that might affect whether or not, Washington could get into him. Because if Patrick Queen wants to go with a coach who knows him and knows that experience, if that's going to be valuable. But then again, this is the coordinator who also preferred Roquan Smith over Patrick Queen. So you never know what's going to happen with that. But I do think that the concerns over why Baltimore wouldn't keep him and let him test free agent would be completely overblown, because this is a young player who is really, kind of coming into his own. And with Washington having a need in that position, it's going to be great, especially because he not just is a good run stopper or a good coverage linebacker, but he's been fantastic at getting after the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that is worth money. Mm-hmm. You have Jamin Davis, who is also an explosive player, and you have him trying to line up on different spots with this new Joe Witt defense that we're expecting, where the things are going to change. You have two rangy linebackers that you can move around and really cause problems for opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses. I think Patrick Queen would be fantastic here off the edge or right there holding down the middle for Washington for years to come.
That kind of on a side note then, or an adjacent note here, then Washington has to decide on Jamin Davis for a fifth-year option. Do you think Washington gives him that fifth-year option this offseason?
So that's going to be another one that maybe we'll have to do a player focus on Jamin Davis separately, because Jamin Davis, if Patrick Queen is signed on, Jamin Davis might get the Patrick Queen situation where it's like, hey, we got our other linebacker that we're going to sign, and we're going to let you test free agency. But there's a lot left to go with this and where they want to see. And we're going to keep you up to date with the situation with Jamin Davis and all player acquisitions for the Washington Commanders. Just make sure you stay here on the channel. Patrick Queen was our Don't Sleep Energy player focus for today. Make sure you head over to don'tsleepenergy.com. Use the code DISTRICT to get yourself 10% off. It's a DC company, a local company that you can get your products from right there. DMV company, don'tsleepenergy.com. Just use the code DISTRICT. Let them know that we sent you there to get all their great products, whether or not it's energy drinks, energy shots, or some of their great gear that they have on location. I'm Nathan Barry. That's the Stoner here from Ref the District on the Believe Network. This episode has been brought to you by Bet Online and Don't Sleep Energy. Until next time,
don't sleep on Patrick Queen.
Be a fan.